And it all starts with this guy, Neil. And Neil is 43 when the story starts, living in England, and Neil is a vascular surgeon. But Neil is also a really weird guy. I mean, he's very into amputation, but not just because of his own job. He has always wanted to amputate his own body parts because allegedly he secretly finds the idea of amputation hot? Yeah, this is very bizarre. Anyway, one day in 2019, Neil comes up with a plan to have his lower legs amputated. And along with that, scam the insurance company out of a bunch of money. And so
wait a second. Wait a darn second. Wait a second here. This guy is known as weird because he fetishizes being an amputee. What's wrong with that? I don't see what's wrong with that. Why not teach how to be an amputee and respect amputees in school? Why shouldn't kids who want to be amputees be able to be amputees without telling their parents? Why don't we have parades for amputees? That's what I'm asking. It's astonishing to me that you guys call this man weird because he fetishizes amputees. What's weird about that, you bigot? Are you a bigot? Are you amputee-ophobic? All right, we can continue playing.
So Neil gets to work on this plan. First, he either has some sort of insurance policy or he gets one in the private sector. Either way, he makes sure he's insured. Then he gets a bunch of dry ice and he soaks his lower legs in it, like just the part below his knees, so that part of his legs freezes. And he has to soak them for like hours, and the dry ice hurts. Like, this is not a fun time that he has to do this, but it works. He successfully does a lot of damage to his legs. Then, I assume he calls an ambulance for himself and is like, my legs are messed up, come get me! And so, I guess an ambulance rushes him to the hospital, and when the doctors ask what happened, he comes up with this whole story about how he was on a camping trip with his family, and he hurt his leg, and then when he got home, he developed sepsis or something.
What that, Mr. Producer? Why does he have to lie? He shouldn't have to lie. He wants to be an amputee. It's his life. Love is love and all that stupid talk. Why not? Why can't he just be an amputee and live his life? He had to lie? If he wants to cut off pieces of his body parts, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I don't understand what the fuss is about. People should just encourage him. And yes, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep being super sarcastic until these idiots out there understand how stupid their ideology is. This man wanted to be amputee really, really bad. He had this fetishization. I don't even know the weird word. He was obsessed with it. He sexualized it even. And so he went and made this insanely kooky plan to think of a way to have his legs removed. According to today's logic, I don't see what the problem is. I really don't see it. We continue playing.
And the doctors examine his legs and they're like, yep, you got a sepsis infection. And they conclude that there's nothing they can do for him and that they have to remove his legs. And I guess secretly Neil is like, sweet, because, this is all part of his plan, because I guess he thinks amputation is super hot, like it gets him going. And of course the doctors, they don't know this, they think he has sepsis. And so Neil, he goes into surgery, and the surgeons remove his legs right below the knee. 7 weeks later, after recovering in the hospital, they send him home. So he goes home and he starts, of all things, a YouTube channel. And there he starts vlogging a little about his amputation journey.
So I'm now bilateral.
He looks like the type. He looks like the type that would be attracted to somebody who has a loss of their own legs and limbs. Why? So many things I could say here, and I'm trying to hold my comments till the end because y'all gonna see how much disgust I have for Decepticons for this very reason. I don't see the difference. I do not see the difference between the Decepticon walking out there, doing what they do when they cut off their bosoms and they cut off their hot dog and they give it up to live the life of a sweet little princess. And they go and they do something like that and everybody congratulates them. It's not weird at all. We can't even say it's weird, can we? You say it's weird. You say, man, that's weird. Oh, you lost your job. Oh, you kicked out of school. Oh, you're labeled a bigot. Oh, you get shot. This is the problem, man. People are so hypocritical. If you look at this story and trust me, his channel is very big. People in the comment section are saying, this is weird. This is creepy. I thought it was weird and creepy when men was in dresses dancing. But I was a bad guy for saying that. But it's not weird and creepy that this dude get to do what he want to do. That's weird and creepy. But when a man says he wants to cut off his Johnson, that's not weird and creepy. That's who he really is. What type of backwards world are we in? You can continue playing. Oh, I'm gonna make you work today, Mr.
Baloney amputee.
And so now he doesn't have legs, and I assume he's happy because he low-key thinks amputation is hot. And he's getting all sorts of sympathy from the people around him because his accident was so tragic and unexpected. Meanwhile, he goes and he quietly cashes in his insurance claim, and he's awarded more than £466,000, or around $630,000 US.
What?
And from there, Neil has to recover for a few months, and he gets prosthetic legs, and he learns to start walking on those, and he vlogs the process a little bit. And about 6 months later, he goes back to work at the hospital as a vascular surgeon. Here's a picture of him. You can see he's got the prosthetic legs on.
Pause this real
Now,
quick. Now let me ask people for real. Who in the world will be comfortable with a man this wacky in the head being a doctor for you? Just be for real now. None of this, oh, well, I feel comfortable with anybody, even though they have different ideas than myself. Shut up. I'm talking about be honest. If a man had done this to himself, purposely hurt himself because of the ideas in his head, wanted to live life as an amputee, would you feel comfortable with him being your doctor?
Heck no.
Exactly. You would not, because you know something is wrong. But yet, we supposed to send our little girls to school in the same bathroom as a grown man who thinks he's a little girl. We have to have this duality of stupidity where we just put things out of our mind even though we know something is wrong. We can look at a dude who would do something like this and laugh at his story and say how crazy it is, and then go and see Delilah, who used to be David, the next day at work, and we don't get to say nothing. That's cool with y'all? This the world y'all want to live in? All right, you can play it.
throughout his recovery, he's been getting all sorts of media attention. And this dude, he's playing it up.
Probably been the toughest year of my life, that goes without saying.
It's been a very strange year.
Even the BBC does a little special segment on him, and they interview him. And he's like telling the media and people how, oh, this has changed his outlook on life now. And, you know, he had taken things for granted like walking the dog or playing football with his kid, but he'll never be able to do that again. Bitch, it's your fault. Anyway, in 2020, he ends up winning some kind of award for bravery in his fight to return back to a normal life, I guess. Meanwhile, he's also...
Look at all the congratulations he's getting. Look at all the accolades, the awards, people coming out of the woodwork to say how brave he is. You don't think that after he receives something like that, other people will not copy him? Other people who say, you know what? I don't use my legs that much anyway. I'm already depressed. My life is already going downhill. I can get all this attention from mutilating my body. People will label me a hero and say how brave I am. You don't think that has effect on what somebody does? You don't think somebody will live a lie if they know they're going to be congratulated as a hero every day? They absolutely will. And then people will look at him and say he's wrong for doing what he did. But then a man who pretends to be a woman that goes against a woman in a sport and wins, we congratulate them. You can play the video.
Working on the side as a lecturer at a local university. And in 2021, he applies for the European Space Agency's Para-Astronaut Feasibility Project, where they're seeing if people with a physical disability could go into space. And so he applies for a spot, and his story is so inspiring that he ends up on the short list for the program. Like, the way he is getting away with all this is insane. Now, remember how I said you aren't ready for this one? Well, here's where it all gets really weird. At some point, Neil connects with this guy, who we'll just call Creepy. Here's a real-life picture of Creepy if you want to see it.
Look at this dude. Look. Here's my problem with a lot of these people, man. This and how sick they are and how twisted they are, you would never gather a group of people that were sexually attracted to amputees and purposely go out of their way to become an amputee and fetishize not having limbs. You would never grab those group of people and say, let them teach children. You would never grab those group of people and then just put them amongst society and let them make laws. But yet in our society, the Decepticons go to the top of the list for everything. They're making laws. They're dancing in front of the children. They're reading books in kindergarten. They're getting elected as officials. And people just think this is cool. You can play it.
Now, Creepy, he runs a website, and I just recently learned that this is a real thing. It's some kind of website where people will pay him to amputate their body parts with consent, but it's like a sexual thing for them. So Creepy will then film these amputations, and he will put those videos on his website, and people can then purchase them and watch the videos. Or he will perform the whole procedure for people to watch on live stream. I guess there's a whole subsection.
And this is a question for people who don't believe in God. And for those Christians, I want you to listen because it's a very good question, even though it's weird. What is wrong about this if you're not a Christian? If the people are consenting, they go to a site and everybody involved is a consenting adult and they want to cut off their own arms or become amputees and not have any legs or pluck out their own eyes, what's wrong with that? Because without God, you have no standard of morality. Atheists have it's impossible for them to argue this. If two consenting adults want to do this, an atheist will have to say, well, I don't see anything wrong with it. It may be, according to your morality, not okay. But if that's I might find it weird, but they're two consenting adults. They can do what they want to with their own bodies. That's why Christianity is needed. This is why God created the laws that he created. Because people are so dumb that when you let them have freedom, they will go in a room and film themselves cutting their own body parts off. That's why. God has deemed that he has a law, that there are certain things that are wrong, even though they don't cause harm to anyone but yourself. An atheist cannot fathom that. Well, I should be able to use drugs and do whatever I want to do. It's my body. God has said your body does not belong to you. You belong to God. You don't get to make your own rules. You have to follow God. You don't get to just do what makes you happy. You follow God. Any Christian saying, I'll just do whatever makes me happy. You're an idiot and you never opened the Bible before. The Bible is not about happiness. It's about joy. Joy that only comes from following God. Joy and happiness are two different things. The disciples, the apostles, they follow God until they died, until their dying day. Paul wrote most of the New Testament from prison. Malnourished. People had to bring him food. You think he was happy? No, he was not happy, but he was filled with the joy of the Lord because he knew that what he did had an everlasting weight to it. He was following God. That's what made him joyful. Happiness is fleeting, joy is forever. And for any Christian who says, do whatever makes you happy, guess what? What if cutting off my own arm makes me happy? That's what these sick individuals are doing. What if cutting off my own wee-wee makes me happy, and then I go around in a dress saying how happy I am? Till I shoot up a school, that is. But then I go around in a dress, and everybody tells me I'm pretty, and they all lie to me, even though they know I look like a grown man with a 5 o'clock shadow. They will say these things make them happy. The problem is happiness is here today, gone tomorrow. It doesn't last. Don't do what makes you happy. Obey God in season and out of season. You can play the video.
Of people out there who are not only into that, who are willing to pay money for it. Now, at some point, Neil stumbles upon Creepy's website. And he's like, oh snap, this site is fine. Because, amputations are his thing. And so he signs up for it, and, he loves it. Like, he has found his people. Now, coincidentally, one of the services Creepy advertises is having limbs frozen off. I guess he does that for his clients. Like, if you want your limbs frozen off, he's the guy you go to. So at some point, Neil visits the site so much that he gets in touch with Creepy. Because, they share a mutual interest. And they become friendly, and they start chatting and messaging back and forth. And in their conversations, Neil opens up to him like, guess what I did? And he starts telling him about how he concocted this whole scheme to freeze off his own legs and how he tricked everyone. And he basically confesses his crime to him. And of course, Creepy's like, jolly good show or whatever. But it doesn't matter that he confessed because Creepy, he's never gonna leak that information to the police or to the public.
You want to pause that?
Until...
When you get sick people together, there's a saying that went around even when I was a child, and it went like this. There's no honor amongst thieves. The reason why that's important is people have always expected humanity to only go so far. They expected, oh yeah, if we let gay marriage happen, then you're not going to see 3 men getting married. Well, this week I just saw 3 polyamorous men adopted 2 children in the UK. They said, if you let gay marriage happen, there's not going to be men that are trying to make it okay to have sex with little boys. Well, the MAP group is a group that goes around and they try to get funding. They try to get people to agree that love is love even between a grown man and a boy. They march at gay parades. They got their own t-shirts. They got their own logos. All this stuff, and people still trying to act like, oh, well, the slippery slope thing is a fallacy. No, it's not. When you let these degenerates do things, there is no trust amongst them. There is no honor amongst them. They are degenerate. So you cannot sit up here and act as if, oh yeah, we'll let them read in front of the kids and they'll only go so far. We'll let them play in sports and we'll give them little awards and then they'll only go so far. We'll let them box against men in the MMA or box against girls in the MMA, but they only go so far. No, they will not stop. In the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which I taught about last weekend, these men were filled with rage. They would not stop. Degeneracy is not that of a certain, doesn't have the character of being stable. It will not stop. These people in Sodom and Gomorrah, if you read in Genesis chapter 19, you read the story of Lot. When the men were scratching at the door to have sex with angels, the angels made the men blind. You think that stopped these degenerates? They were scratching at the door to still try to get in to have sex with these creatures they didn't even understand. All they thought with was the degenerate ideas and self-pleasure. That's the world we're going towards today. You can play the video.
Until 2020, One of Creepy's clients comes to Creepy one day and he has like a bunch of gruesome back alley operations and amputations done to him. Things I won't go into too much detail about on this app, but just so you know, he basically had him cut his junk off. Yeah, I know. But afterwards, this junkless guy, he starts claiming that it wasn't consensual. That the whole time, Creepy had been manipulating him into participating in these back alley amputations. So he goes to the police and he gives them...
So, now all of a sudden, it's wrong to manipulate someone to do something like this. It's wrong to manipulate a man to cut his junk off. Unless you're a liberal. When you're a liberal or a leftist, it's totally not wrong to convince children to do that. It's wrong in this story for some reason. Everybody can see the wrong in this story. With two grown men. But when you convince a child to do it, somehow that's okay. That's A-okay with society. It's still going on to this day. We can play the video.
Them all kinds of details and information on Creepy and the weird operation he's running. And it turns out that what Creepy's doing is illegal. And so the guy gives police images and videos and screenshots and messages and all kinds of evidence. And so police, they start investigating Creepy. And they track him down and bam, Creepy is arrested. Here's his mugshot. Now, in the course of their investigation, police shut his website down and they start going through all the information they find in order to identify other victims or perpetrators, and that is when they run across Neil's messages. And so they start looking into him. And they find out that he had bought 3 of Creepy's weird amputation videos from the website, showing some pretty gruesome stuff, and that they had exchanged about 1,500 messages about his own amputation.
Look how obsessive with they are about this. Look how he couldn't just be satisfied with having his own legs removed. Now he's involved in a whole amputee type cult, and they all fabulous. Fabulous! They doing all types of lame and gay stuff together. You can play the video.
Which, in the end, ends up being evidence against him. So, in 2023, bam, Neil gets arrested. Here's his mugshot. And eventually, he pleads guilty, and he gets sentenced to 32 months in prison. While Creepy also pleads guilty, and he's sentenced to a minimum of 22 years in prison. Oh, and there's one more thing that makes all this even that much more awful. Neil was a surgeon, so he had a bunch of former patients who are now seeking legal advice because they're thinking that maybe Neil had recommended that they get something amputated when they didn't really need it, just because he finds the whole procedure hot. Get the fuck out of here. Oh my, imagine that. Imagine if that had happened to you.
Because that's pretty much the end of the video. But what I'll say is this. So the people observed and they filed a lawsuit because they came together and realized this creepy man had a fetish and he was convincing them to do things they shouldn't have done. Is that what you're telling me? How many lawsuits can we have based on this of the children who are being encouraged to chemically castrate themselves? I think they should sue the mess out of any school. If they have any doubt when they get older, if they have been convinced to do this, I think they should sue the pants off of any school that brought someone in that told them this was a beneficial thing to do for their lives. Sue the pants off of them. Sue them so much you can get your Johnson back. That's how much you should sue them for. I don't know how much a Johnson is going for these days, but that creepy man in the video, he probably selling some on the dark web somewhere. All types of Johnsons he probably got in his closet.